Hello all, welcome to this session. In today's session, we are going to discuss about a very important deal, that is the Black Sea grain deal. So what we're going to discuss about is firstly the origin of this deal, that how this deal originated. Then we are going to move forward with the significance of this Black Sea grain deal, what this deal is all about, and why is it so relevant over here. Another important thing over here that we'll be looking over here, the conflict that have been erupted over between Russia and the rest of the world, and we are going to discuss some important data and point that has been presented by both of these sides. So let's start. So if I firstly talk about the Black Sea Grain Initiative, we have to understand this topic pertaining to the war that is happening between Ukraine and Russia. So this Black Sea, as the name suggests, and Grain Initiative, what it is. See, the Black Sea Grain Initiative, it basically endeavors to tackle the escalating food prices that has been rising due to the supply chain disruptions because of the Russian actions in the world's breadbasket. Right. Now, if you look at after the conflict of Russia and Ukraine, the world has been witnessing a lot of problems. And one problem is the shortage of grain. So this deal that we are talking about, it goes back to July 2022 when the deal brokered by the UN and Turkey was signed in Istanbul in July 2022. So this deal came with an objective, and it was initially stipulated for a period of around 120 days. And the deal was to provide for a safe maritime humanitarian corridor for the Ukraine exports, and particularly to providing the food grains. So the central idea was to actually calm the markets and bring down the prices of the products by ensuring an adequate supply of grains, and thereby it also aimed to limit the food price inflation. As we have already seen that with this Russia and Ukraine war, there have been disruption of a lot of kind, and one such disruption is the disruption in the food supply. So any kind of such disruption, it is basically a humanitarian crisis, and in order to tackle that, see, the growing tensions and conflicts are still not resolved, and this deal was made in precise with an objective to provide for a safe maritime humanitarian corridor for the Ukrainian exports. There has been a very important role that has been played by Joint Coordination Center JCC. So this deal put in place a joint coordination center comprising senior representatives from Russia, Turkey, Ukraine and the UN for the complete oversight and coordination. So all the commercial ships are required to register themselves directly with this joint coordination center so that there can be a proper monitoring. With that, there can be proper inspection and a safe passage can be provided. Inbound and outbound ships to the designated corridor transit as per a schedule which is accorded by the JCC after the inspection. So this is done basically to ensure that there is no unauthorized cargo or personnel on board, and following this, what happened is that they are allowed to sail onwards to Ukraine ports for loading through the designated corridor. So if you look at whole of the procedure that has been adopted over here, its status, it's very clear in order to provide a safe passage for the exports of the grains. Now, we're talking about Black Sea Grain Initiative, but why is it so important? See, if we talk about the Ukraine is among the largest exporters of wheat, maize, rapeseed, sunflower seeds, and sunflower oil globally. And if you look at the products itself, they are one of the highly consumed products globally. So after the war, there have been a lot of disruptions, and due to that, the world is facing the issue. There definitely the supply is halted for XYZ, whatever reason. There will be a lot of changes in the market we could witness, and we could witness that with the fall in the supply, the prices have been rising, they have been shooting up. So its access to the deep sea ports in the Black Sea basically enables it to directly approach Russia and Europe along with the grain importers from the Middle East and North Africa. So this initiative has also been credited for having made a huge difference to the global cost of living crisis. And if I talk about the numbers, approximately it is said that 9.8 million tons of grains have been shipped since the initiative has commenced. And people hoarding the grain in the hope of selling it for a sizable profit owing to the supply crunch were now obligated to sell. So if you look at it, it's doing multiple work, and over here the hoarding practice, that is something very severe in any market, is something that is being halted. So this initiative, if you look at the significance, it's not just significant for one particular country, but at the global level, this is something a very great initiative. So, although if I talk about the initiative alone, it cannot address the global hunger, right? It can avert the chances of a global food crisis, that it may, it's stopping it to spiral further. Especially when I'm talking about any region, it is yet to scale prior year levels. So completely, we cannot say that it can, completely give you 100% solutions altogether. But whatever work it is doing, it is said to be that it is really helping in bringing the concerned changes. One thing that now let us understand about Black Sea is, as you can see in the map itself. So this Black Sea, if you look, it is an island sea. It is an island sea between Eastern Europe and Western Asia. And if you look at here carefully, it is bounded by Ukraine to the north and northwest, Russia and Georgia to the east, Turkey to the south, and Bulgaria and Romania to the west. And this sea, Black Sea, when you're talking about, it links to the Sea of Marmara, to the Strait of Bosphorus, and then to the Aegean through the Strait of Dardanelles. So if I look at, it is an island sea, and if you look at the location, it is precisely very, very important for the transportation. And from the strategic point of view also, if you look at, since it borders many countries, it becomes extremely important for all of them. Now, this Sea Green initiative that we have talked about, it aims to resume that vital food and fertilizer exports coming from Ukraine to the rest of the world. And this deal that was brokered between Russia and Ukraine by UNs and Turkey. Now, this initiative allowed exports of grain, and with that fertilizers. In fertilizers, we include ammonia, and to resume that complete safe maritime humanitarian corridor from the three key Ukrainian ports over here. So these ports are really very important over here, and the role that has been played over here by the Joint Coordination Center to implement the initiative is also very vital. Now over here, the UN acts as the secretariat for the center. Now, if you look at the whole of the process itself, when vessels wishing to participate in the initiative, they are going through the inspection, and then only a particular thing is allowed. The corridor is being monitored 24/7 to ensure safe passage of vessels, and even on the return journey, the vessels are being inspected at the inspection area of Istanbul. It all brings out and highlights one important factor over here is, since the war is no more over, it becomes all more important to keep a check on any kind of such activity which could aggravate the already a very hot situation happening in the world. So here over here, a very important thing over here is that the President Putin said this month that Russia was considering to withdraw from this Black Sea grain deal. As over here, the president of Russia is accusing the West for cheating Moscow because it still faced obstacles getting its own agriculture goods to world markets. The Putin said that he would discuss the future of the grain deal with visiting African leaders, and this package deal, if I talk about, the UNs and Turkey that brokered the Black Sea Grain Initiative last July, basically was aimed at the global food crisis. But if you look at, this all got worsened by Moscow's invasion of Ukraine and blockade that has been created over the Black Sea ports. So this deal, if you look over here, it has been extended already three times, and nearly, if we talk about in big numbers, 32 million tons of corn, wheat have so far been exported by Ukraine under the deal. So this initiative is very, very important. And if you look at to convince Russia to agree to the initiative itself, a 3-year pact was also struck last year, in which UNs agreed to help Moscow overcome any obstacle to its own food and fertilizer shipments. See, one thing here is that Russian exports of food and fertilizers are not subject to Western sanctions that have been imposed after the February 2022 invasion of Ukraine. So Moscow says that restriction on payments, any logistics and insurance have actually amounted to a barrier to its shipments. And over here, a very important statement coming from UN spokesperson Stephen Dujarric. He said that the past months has shown tangible progress on improving Russian exports, but he also added that challenges remain, but we will spare no effort to overcome all the remaining obstacles, since it's all about the humanitarian crisis that the world is facing. So, if we talk about this deal and how it is very much relevant today, also, see, the poorest in the world were hit worst by the raising global food prices. And we all know about the World Food Program. This World Food Program is being run by UN, and it warned in March last year to 2022 that its ability that it's to feeding around 125 million people was under threat because the 50% of the grains have been coming from Ukraine. Yes, the 50% of the grains have been coming from Ukraine, and between 2018 to 2020, Africa itself imported $3.7 billion in wheat, and for it's 32% of total African wheat imports if we talk about from Russia, and the another $1.4 billion from Ukraine. 12% of total African wheat imports. So this is the report that was given by the UNs, and by this we can actually calculate that how significant this deal is for the major countries. The UN said last year that around 36 countries count on Russia and Ukraine for more than half of their wheat imports. 36 countries, which include some of the most poorest and the most vulnerable countries such as Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Somalia, and Democratic Republic of Congo. So under the Black Sea grain deal, more than around 625,000 tons of grain has so far been shipped by the World Food Programme to aid operations in Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, and Yemen. In 2022 itself, World Food Programme procured more than half of its global wheat grain from Ukraine. And at this moment, if any kind of problem is occurring over here, since the war is no more over, it is disrupting the whole of the food supply and thereby bringing these already severely hit countries with a lot of problems. Now over here, if you focus on Russia's complaints, with what data it has come over here, Putin complained that Russia has been cheated by the West because its own exports still face problems. And the US has dismissed Russia's grievances. And the US ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, said last month that it is exporting grain and fertilizers at the same levels and if not higher than before the full-scale invasion. Over here, if you talk about Putin, Putin said that Russia only agreed to the deal for the sake of countries in Africa and Latin America, and that only around 3.2 to 3% of the grain goes to the world's poorest countries, and it blamed that around 40% went to the prosperous country. So according to the UN data, around 3% of exports under the Black Sea deal has gone to low-income countries, and while high-income countries get around 44% and the rest to the middle-income states. So this is here when we discuss about what the deal was all about. With this, we end this session here. Thank you.